Most people move abroad by spending their savings every month. But in a handful of countries, one affordable rental property can cover part of your life abroad before your savings even get touched. Not a mansion, not a huge portfolio, just one smart property in a low-cost country where rental income actually moves the needle. These are 8 countries where rental property can help fund your life abroad in 2026, and one, near the end, combines rental income, residency, and a major tax advantage. Starting in South America, Colombia. There is a reason Medellin keeps showing up in every relocation conversation, and it is not just the weather. The property math here is genuinely compelling. A modern apartment in a desirable neighborhood like Laureles or El Poblado can be purchased in the range of $60,000 to $120,000. That same apartment, furnished and listed on short or medium-term rental platforms, can generate roughly $500 to $900 per month, depending on location, condition, and management. Now here is where it gets interesting. A couple can live reasonably well in Medellin on around $1,200 to $1,500 a month. That covers rent on a personal apartment, food, transportation, health insurance, and even some social spending. So one rental property generating $700 or $800 a month could realistically cover half or more of total monthly living expenses. That is less than rent in many Western cities, and that is the real framework for this video. The property does not need to make you rich. It only needs to reduce the amount of money your new life burns every month. Colombia also offers a relatively straightforward path to a resident visa through property investment, though the thresholds and requirements shift, so verifying current rules before making any move is essential. The tenant pool is strong, particularly among digital nomads and traveling professionals who prefer furnished month-to-month arrangements. Who does this suit best? Someone with moderate capital who wants warm weather, low costs, and an active expat community with real infrastructure. Colombia shows how one rental can cover half the monthly burn, but the next country brings the cost of living even lower, with one ownership rule foreigners absolutely cannot ignore. Country number 2, Thailand. Thailand has been a magnet for location-independent people for over a decade, but most of them rent. The ones paying attention in 2026 are buying. Condominiums in cities like Chiang Mai, Bangkok, and Pattaya can be purchased in the range of $60,000 to $120,000. These condos can generate rental income of roughly $400 to $800 per month, depending on size, location, and whether the unit is rented short or long-term. Living costs in Thailand remain remarkably low. A single person can live well on $800 to $1,200 a month. A couple can manage on slightly more, so even at the lower end of rental income, one condo could cover a significant portion of monthly expenses. Here is the critical catch. Foreigners cannot directly own land in Thailand, but they can legally own condominium units outright, provided the foreign ownership quota in that building has not been exceeded. Condos are the cleaner route, and for most international buyers, the only practical route. Property management companies are widely available and relatively affordable. Tourism demand creates a steady pipeline of short-term tenants, especially in resort and urban areas. But this only works if the numbers survive fees, tax, and vacancy. Property management typically costs 10 to 15% of rental income. Vacancy months happen, and Thai tax rules on rental income do apply, so professional guidance matters. Who suits Thailand best? Someone who wants ultra-low living costs, an established expat infrastructure, and a property asset in one of Southeast Asia's most visited countries. Could this cover your monthly life abroad? For a lot of people, surprisingly, yes. Thailand is the low-cost tourist giant, but the next country is quieter, more polished, and maybe easier to actually live in long-term. Country number 3, Malaysia. Malaysia is the quiet achiever on this list. Penang and Kuala Lumpur offer condos in the range of $80,000 to $150,000 that can generate roughly $500 to $1,000 a month in rental income. The quality of life is high, healthcare is world-class, English is widely spoken, and the food alone is worth the move according to almost everyone who has lived there. Cost of living for a couple in Kuala Lumpur or Penang typically falls between $1,000 and $1,600 a month. That means one well-located rental unit could cover a meaningful chunk of monthly expenses. Malaysia's MM2H program, the Malaysia My Second Home Visa, was revised in 2024. The requirements were tightened, including higher income thresholds and financial deposit minimums. Anyone considering this path in 2026 needs to check the very latest requirements carefully because the program continues to evolve. That said, Malaysia remains one of the friendliest countries in Southeast Asia for long-term foreign residents. Ownership rules allow foreigners to buy property above certain price thresholds, which vary by state. In most cases, condos above a minimum value are accessible to international buyers. Who suits Malaysia best? Someone who values modern infrastructure, cultural diversity, affordable healthcare, and wants a property market that is still relatively accessible compared to Singapore or Hong Kong next door. Malaysia is the quiet achiever. The next country is the practical North American play, close, familiar, and full of rental demand. Country number 4, Mexico. Mexico might be the most practical option on this entire list for North Americans. Cities like Mérida and Oaxaca offer property in the range of $80,000 to $150,000, and those properties can generate roughly $600 to $1,200 a month in rental income, particularly when targeting short and medium-term renters. Living costs vary by city, but generally fall between $1,000 and $1,600 a month for a couple living comfortably. In smaller cities and towns, even less. So one rental property in a strong market could cover the majority of monthly expenses, especially for someone willing to live modestly. Here is where it gets relevant for American citizens specifically. The Foreign Earned Income Exclusion, or FEIE, protects roughly the first $130,000 of foreign earned income from U.S. federal tax for eligible taxpayers. However, and this matters a lot, rental income is not always treated the same way as earned income. The tax treatment of property income from abroad can be complicated, and professional advice from someone who understands both U.S. and Mexican tax obligations is not optional. It is essential. Mexico allows foreigners to buy property, though in restricted zones near the coast or border, a bank trust called a fideicomiso is typically required. This is a well-established legal mechanism that has been used for decades. Who suits Mexico best? North Americans who want geographic proximity, cultural richness, strong rental demand driven by tourism, and a relatively straightforward property buying process. For property scouting trips across several countries, Saily eSIM is useful for landing with mobile data already active instead of relying on roaming charges. Link below. Mexico is practical, but the next country brings this strategy back to Europe, where the lifestyle is stronger but the regulations get trickier. Country number 5, Greece. Athens has become one of the most interesting property markets in Europe for international buyers. Apartments in central Athens can still be found in the range of 60,000 to 100,000 euros. In tourist-heavy zones, short-term rental yields can reach roughly 5 to 8% annually, which translates to meaningful monthly income, especially during peak travel months. But here is the reality check. Short-term rentals in Greece come with regulatory considerations. Licensing requirements, municipal rules, and evolving government policy on platforms like Airbnb all affect what is actually possible. Management fees eat into margins, and seasonality is real. Summer months can be extremely profitable. Winter months can be quiet. Living costs in Athens are moderate by European standards. A couple can live on roughly 1,500 to 2,000 euros a month, so the math can work, but it requires more active management and more realistic expectations than some of the earlier countries on this list. Greece does offer a golden visa program through property investment, though the minimum thresholds were raised in recent years. Anyone considering this path should verify the latest investment minimums and conditions. Who suits Greece best? Someone drawn to European culture, Mediterranean lifestyle, and willing to handle the seasonality and regulatory complexity that comes with short-term tourist rentals. The real win is not getting rich. It is lowering the amount of money needed to live free. And the next country may be the clearest example of that math. Country number 6, Panama. Panama is where the financial strategy behind this video gets genuinely exciting. Property investments in the range of $150,000 to $250,000 can generate roughly $800 to $1,500 per month in rental income, depending on location and property type. Panama City has a well-developed rental market serving both locals and the large international community based there. But here is the headline. Panama operates a territorial tax system. That means income generated outside of Panama is generally not taxed by Panama. For someone earning money from investments, businesses, or pensions based in another country, this is a significant structural advantage. Now, rental income earned inside Panama from Panamanian property is considered locally sourced and is subject to local tax. So the benefit is nuanced, not absolute. Making tax promises would be irresponsible, but the overall tax environment is one of the most favorable in the Western Hemisphere for people structuring an international life. Living costs in Panama City range from roughly $1,500 to $2,200 a month for a couple. Outside the capital, costs drop. The country uses the US dollar, which eliminates currency risk for American investors, a factor that is easy to overlook but genuinely matters when rental income is being used to fund daily life. Panama also offers several residency visa options, including the well-known Friendly Nations visa and a pensionado program with attractive benefits for retirees. Who suits Panama best? Someone with slightly more capital who wants a stable dollar-denominated environment, favorable tax treatment on foreign income, and strong residency pathways. For deeper country reports, rental property breakdowns, and visa guides, Horizon Insider is linked below. Panama is the tax structure play, but the next country is where rental income can directly support the residency story. Country number 7, Portugal. Portugal has been one of the most popular relocation destinations in Europe, and for good reason. The Algarve region and Porto offer apartments in the range of 120,000 to 200,000 euros that can generate roughly 600 to 1,200 euros per month in rental income. The D7 visa is particularly relevant here. It is designed for people who can demonstrate passive income, which includes rental income. This makes Portugal one of the few countries where the rental property itself can serve double duty, generating the income used to both live and qualify for legal residency. But Portugal in 2026 is not the bargain it was 5 years ago. Lisbon in particular has become expensive. Competition for good rental properties has intensified. Short-term rental regulations have tightened in several municipalities. And the cost of living has risen, with a couple now needing roughly 1,800 to 2,500 euros a month in Lisbon, less in Porto or the Algarve. Would the rental income be worth the extra paperwork? For many people, the answer is still yes, because the lifestyle, safety, healthcare system, and residency pathway remain compelling. But the margins are thinner than before, and expectations need to be calibrated accordingly. Who suits Portugal best? Someone who prioritizes quality of life in Europe, wants a legitimate residency pathway through passive income, and has enough capital to absorb higher entry costs compared to Latin American or Southeast Asian options. If you are comparing test stays before buying, the Expedia link below is useful for checking neighborhoods and short-term accommodation before committing to a property market. But one European option looks simple until the renovation bill appears. That one is next, and it is the final country on this list. Country number 8, Italy. Almost everyone has heard about the €1 homes in Italy. The headline sounds like a fantasy. Buy a house in a charming Italian village for basically nothing. The reality is more complex, more expensive, and more emotionally resonant than the headline suggests. Those €1 homes almost always require significant renovation. Realistic total investment after purchase and renovation typically falls somewhere between €20,000 and €50,000, sometimes more. Municipal contracts often require the renovation to be completed within a specific time frame. Building permits, contractors, material costs, and bureaucratic processes all factor in. But here is what makes Italy the right closer for this video. Once renovated, these properties can generate rental income in tourist areas or through platforms targeting travelers seeking authentic Italian village experiences. The income may be modest compared to a big city apartment, but the cost of living in small Italian towns can also be remarkably low. €800 to €1,400 a month can go a long way in rural Sicily, Sardinia, or Calabria. Italy also offers the elective residence visa for people who can demonstrate passive income of roughly €31,000 per year. Rental income from a property portfolio, combined with other passive income sources like pensions or investments, can potentially meet that threshold. This is not a guaranteed path, and each application is evaluated individually, but the structure exists. The emotional draw is undeniable. A renovated stone house in an Italian hill town, olive trees outside the window, rental income covering a meaningful portion of living expenses, and legal residency in one of the most culturally rich countries on earth. That is a dream with a catch. The catch is real work, real money, and real patience. But for the right person, it is extraordinary. Italy is not for someone who wants easy. It is for someone with patience, a willingness to navigate renovation and bureaucracy, and a deep emotional connection to building a life in one of Europe's most beautiful countries. Here is the real takeaway. Rental property abroad is not guaranteed passive income. Vacancies happen, repairs happen, property managers take a cut. Tax rules change, short-term rental rules can shift overnight. But in the right country, one property does not need to make you rich. It only needs to cover enough of your monthly costs that living abroad becomes less scary and more realistic. That is the real strategy here. Not getting rich from one apartment, but buying down the monthly cost of freedom. So which country would you actually trust with a rental property plan? Colombia, Thailand, Malaysia, Mexico, Greece, Panama, Portugal, or Italy? Drop it in the comments.